please?
Yes, I'm almost done. Just give me like 2 or 3 more takes.
The kids are going to sleep. You need to turn that down now.
I know, I'm sorry. Just give me a few minutes, please.
That's it. I want a divorce.
Oh, that poor sap. But is his situation much like yours? Are the joys or prospects of recording through a real tube amp being squandered because you live in a house with other people, or maybe you live in an apartment? Are you ready to succumb to the lure of digital modeling? Well, you don't have to, because there's a device out there that can give you the benefits of recording with a real tube amp while enjoying all the conveniences of modern day modelers, and I'm going to tell you all about it. Now, maybe it wouldn't be so bad if you actually learned how to tune his guitar. Hey there, I'm Dan, the self-proclaimed Lonely Rocker. Thank you so much for joining me today. So I guess I used to be that poor sap in the intro, but I took steps to correct that, and now there's peace and harmony in my house. Well, at least I'm not causing any of the issues, and that's thanks to devices like this Loadbox over here. Now, if you're new to the concept of Loadboxes and real tube amplifiers, I'm going to take you through the basics so you can understand how this works. Perhaps you come from the modeling world and this is a foreign concept, so I'm going to share some details about how this all works. But if you're interested in this particular Loadbox, this is the St. Rock React IRII. This is a pretty amazing Loadbox with some amazing features, and if you are coming from the modeling world, well, there's going to be some things familiar about this, so I'm going to walk you through all of that, because I think the biggest argument about real amplifiers, especially for those of you coming from the modeling world, is that amps are just too loud. Well, they don't have to be thanks to devices like this, so let's get into the details. So before we connect this to our amplifier, I want to talk about the concept of a load, because this is called a load box. Now I'm going to use simple terms because I'm a pretty simple guy. But when you have a tube amplifier, imagine that this amplifier is creating a lot of energy, and that energy has to go somewhere. So when you connect the output from the amplifier and plug that into a speaker, that energy comes out in the form of sound. And the speaker offers actually a few functions. Number one, we can hear what's coming out of the amplifier. We're also filtering the signal, because the sound that's coming out of the amplifier doesn't sound very good. So the speaker acts as a filter to give us that finished tone that we all enjoy. And the last thing that it does, it acts as a load, really a device that's offsetting the energy from the amplifier and allow it to be dissipated, as I said, in the form of sound. Now, if you tried to play this amplifier without a speaker, you could really damage that amplifier, because that energy is just kind of stuck inside and has nowhere to go. And you can literally set your amplifier on fire, and we don't want to do that. So a load box takes the role of a speaker in some regard, in the fact that it can offload that energy, but then it can convert that signal to a line level, so you can hook up a simple cable, a direct output that you can plug into your audio interface and record the signal from the amplifier directly. So you could literally dime this amplifier. Now, if I dime this amplifier and put it through that speaker, I'm getting kicked out of the house because it's way too loud. But if I put it through a load box, now we're going into our computer or we're monitoring on headphones. We can monitor that sound at comfortable volumes, but the saturation that the amp is generating, because we're pushing it, well, you can enjoy that tone and you can record it and really enjoy what an amplifier is supposed to do. So that's the concept of a load box, sort of taking the place of the speaker. But boxes like this offer a lot more features, which I am going to get into further in the video. But let's look how we would hook this up. The general rule of thumb when connecting a tube amp to a single speaker cabinet is to match the impedance between the speaker output on the amp and the cabinet you are connecting it to. This rule also applies to load boxes. The React IRII is fixed at 8 ohms as noted here, and the TM50 has 3 speaker outputs at 4, 8, and 16 ohms. Using a speaker cable, I connect the 8 ohm out on the amp to the from amp input on the load box. Another very important detail to be mindful of is the wattage. The React IRII is rated for a maximum of 100 watts. While load boxes can generally handle a bit more, especially if you manage the output level of the amp, I'd highly recommend you stay within the published limits of the device. The TM50 is a 50 watt amp, so I'm well within the limits of the React IRII. Lastly, you need to take the output of the load box and send it to wherever you want to monitor or record it. The React IRII has a number of different ways you can do this depending on what you want to do, but the simplest way is to take the DI out and connect that to the input of your audio interface. You can now plug in your guitar and record the raw signal from your amp into your DAW, and then add a cab IR with a plugin to finish your tone. I use amp modelers as my audio interfaces so I can host my cab IRs in the modeler. There are a number of ways to achieve the same thing. But the React IRII has a built-in cab IR loader. So let's get into that and the other features. So load boxes come in all different shapes and sizes and offer different features. Now, this reactive load, for example, is a great load box, and that's all it does. It has no other features. But the St. Rock React IR2 comes packed with all sorts of features that make it a real all-in-one device and a great for recording, for live gigging, because it just offers a full feature set in one box. So let's take a look at some of the main features. On top of being a great load box, the React IR2 has a ton of useful features, making this a great device for a multitude of use cases. For starters, it has a number of digital effects that you can build into custom signal chains and save them as presets in one of the 128 available slots. The large display lets you navigate these features right on the device, or you can connect it to your desktop with the USB cable or via Bluetooth so you can access an app that is also available on mobile. There are a number of dials and buttons that give you access to different features of the digital side of the device, as well as input and headphone levels, and a level control for the attenuator. You can switch the device between a passive and a reactive load, and the reactive load option has two modes, with mode 2 offering a little more high-end. I find it much easier to build presets through the app. All of the available effects are fully customizable. You've got a gate, EQ, compressor, modulation, delay, and reverb. The latter three offer a lot of options to help you really shape the sound you're looking for. And the React IR2 has a built-in cab IR loader that ships with 27 cab IRs and has additional slots available for your own cab IRs. You can also blend up to 4 cab IRs together. On the main screen, you have a schematic of all of the available features and hardware connections. This takes us round back. You have your various outputs like the DI I demonstrated earlier, stereo XLR outputs for your process signals, and the attenuator output with options for 4, 8, and 16 ohm cabinets. You've got a send with stereo returns, a pad, and a ground lift. You've also got MIDI and a USB port to connect the React IR2 to your computer. right, so full transparency, I'm actually reshooting this ending. I was in the process of editing this video and I had to take a couple days off, some personal things I had to deal with. Anyways, I kept using this, and I think I have a little bit more to offer in terms of my final thoughts on this device. Now, what's really important, and I always say this to anyone who's watching my videos, is that when you buy something, don't take my word for it 100%. I'm here to offer one perspective, and perspective is everything because my use case scenario may be very different from yours. You need to buy things that A, work within your budget and deliver the functions and features that you need for your personal setup. We may have radically different setups, so that really comes down to what you need, and I want to stress that's important. Now, perspective, and I'll give you an example. I love recording with Loadboxes. I love using real amplifiers. And this is coming from a guy, I have Fractal, I've got Helix, I've got Quad Cortex. I love that technology. But there's something about amplifiers that I still love it. I think that's the origin of real tone. But working at a home studio where volume is an issue, I have other people in the house, it has to be a consideration. And I used the term at the beginning of the video, I said it's convenient as modern day modelers. I want to qualify that. Volume. If you've ever used the excuse, well, I can't have an amp because I live in an apartment, well, something like this is going to negate that because you can record an amp as loud as you want, but still work at bedroom volumes, work on headphones. There's no excuse anymore in terms of volume. Cost, well, obviously there's a bit of an investment here. Again, that's not a part of the topic of this video, but I just wanted to say that perspective is everything because, for example, the DSP processing in this device, it's a really nice to have. Now, I record my amps direct. I'll take the signal through my load box, and typically I'll add my effects in my mix. So having effects on board here, for me, it'd be like kind of, whatever. But I am setting up a secondary setup, something I'm going to talk about in another video. And this is going to be an important part of that. And that's going to have a role to play. But having the cab IR loader on board is definitely a great feature because sometimes I do record with cab IRs on. But again, it comes down to your workflow. But certainly the DSP processing and the cab IR loader are really nice to have features, even if it's something that you don't necessarily use every day. If you're just plugging in and just want to, play around a little bit, pop on some headphones, you've got all the effects in here. Like I said, it's just a really great feature to have. I'd call it a nice to have, not necessarily a need to have. But the most important part of a load box is the load feature. Now, I don't want to get into all the science of impedance curves and things like that, but there is a relationship between an amplifier and the speaker. There's something natural that happens, especially when you get the right combination of an amplifier and a speaker. That's the cornerstone of creating great tone. Now, some load boxes sort of deliver what I'll call an unnatural translation, and they rely on software to give you the ability to tweak that to get the sound that you want. I like load boxes that give me a very natural translation from the amplifier through the load box that feels like it's a speaker, and once I apply the right cab IR, it just sounds right. And that's something that I have to say and will say about this box is that it's exceptional. It's a high quality load box, and it really gives me that natural translation that I look for. I've struggled with some other boxes where something just instinctively didn't feel right. And until I started to understand that and the impedance curves and that relationship between the amplifier, this is taking the role of the speaker, so that translation has to feel natural, and it really, really does. And just holding this thing in my hand, my thumb's killing me. It's heavy. I mean, this is a very solid device, very well built. There's quality components in here, and it's a good solid analog signal chain, and you're going to get a natural translation from your amplifier into your DAW if you're recording or if you're playing live or whatever you're doing. That's the most important thing. One thing that I do want to say is the software that drives this device, it certainly makes the experience of using this a lot easier. Because, working on board here with the little screen here and the buttons, you can fumble around a little bit, but it certainly makes the functionality of this much easier. Now, to me, the software feels like it has room to grow. If you're coming from the modeling world and your expectation, you're going to have a lot of an ability to move your effects around and do all sorts of things like that. That's not something that's going to offer you. And I feel some limitations there in terms of what I would expect software to be able to do. Now, how that ties into the hardware, I don't personally know, but the software feels like it has room to grow. It didn't disappoint me. Like I said, it made all of these features much easier to access and to move around, managing cab IRs. Really, really great. But I just feel like it's something that has room to improve, and hopefully they're going to keep developing that. Something tells me that they are, and I think we'll see updates to that software as we go forward. Another thing I should mention, actually that's a big bonus, is the USB connection actually allows you to record via USB into your DAW. So if you are setting up a recording setup, you've got an amp, you need a load box, and you don't even have an audio interface yet, this can actually function as your recording interface. You assign it as your input. So if you're processing, all the effects on here, your cab IRs, you take the USB output, assign that as your input, suddenly this becomes a recording device. So if you really think about all of the features that it has built in, high quality load box, well-made DSP processing, cab IR loader, and the ability to record from this device, you're going to get a lot of value out of this if those are the things that you require. If you don't need all these extra features, I call it a nice to have. That comes down to you and what you need. So overall, St. Rock is a really great company. I've got the chance to know them. Very, very nice people working really hard to build quality products. And this is a very high quality product. So I'm going to put a link in the description if you want more information about the React IR2. Check them out. Like I said, really, really great company. Now, if you have any thoughts, if you have any questions at all, that's what the comment section is for. But if you did enjoy this video, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring that bell. And while you're down there, well, the fusion of analog and digital technology is something I love talking about. So I'm going to pop one of those videos right here if you want to check it out. And remember, you don't need a band to rock and roll. I'll catch you in the next one.